Fiorio, here with his lovely co-hosts Karen and Dawn alongside for yet another foray into the world at large. So here we are for another evening on the right side of things. And tonight we are going to be rejoined, I should say, because we were joined once before, by a very interesting cat. Paul Santisi is a gentleman who kind of defies explanation, and the reason I say that is because he's everywhere all at once. This has to be, they once called James Brown the hardest working man in show business. I don't know that James can hold that title anymore as the hardest working man in anything, because I've met some people and been privileged enough to meet some people who, when it comes to working hard, especially in the area of trying to make the world a better place or in metaphysics in general, they work a lot harder than any entertainer would ever think to work. And Paul Santisi is one of those folks. He has an amazing channel, obviously the Paul Santisi channel on YouTube, and this thing is chock full of so much metaphysics it's not even funny. This is a man who creates so many different types of meditation that it's mind-boggling. I don't know where he gets the time, quite frankly. I figure he probably sleeps maybe about 30 minutes a night tops. He'd have to lead the kind of life he lives. But he has meditations of all different types on this YouTube channel, using a combination of music, binaural beats, and he does things for astral projection, something that's very near and dear to my heart, obviously, confronting fears, cleansing, meditation, how to improve your photographic memory, self-creation, sleep relaxation, removing negative blocks, you name it, and Paul has created a meditation for it. Currently, he has an incredible amount of subscribers, numbering in the tens of thousands, millions of views on his channel. He has created the Paul Santisi Energy Coin, something he was very, very kind last time to give me one of, which I still have, and I'm looking at it now. And so he's probably done so much. If I stood here and tried to list everything, we'd be here all night and I would never get to him. So let me, without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let me move on to our guest, because Paul's going to be here for the next couple of hours talking about all things metaphysics, and should be pretty interesting. So hopefully I gave him enough of a good send up there. Paul, how are you, my friend?
Fantastic.
You always are. I don't think I've ever spoken to you and heard, I'm okay, or it's a crap day, or I don't feel good. You're always, you are probably the most consistent person I've ever spoken to. You are consistently fantastic.
You want to know why tonight? I mean, talk about down to the wire. It was about 6:30, and I remembered that I needed to use a landline for quality, for the clarity on the call. And I'm like, oh, crap, the landline. I'm like, I don't even have a phone cord. So I hopped in the car, and I fly down my street just to remember that it's the little Halloween event for my town. So obviously there's traffic and farm equipment and people in costumes and all that. So I fly down to my drugstore. They don't have any phone cords. I fly to the dollar store. I find a coupling, but no phone cords. Then I fly to a CVS store, and I'm asking them about a phone cord, and they're showing me phone chargers. These kids didn't even know what a phone cord was. And I'm like, oh, my God. So then it hit me. I'm like, there's one in the laundry room behind the dryer. I'm like, yes, I remember. I fly home. I run and grab it. I plug it in, and bam, you introduced me.
Wow, you're right. That was close and down to the wire.
So if I'm a little out of breath, and if it takes me a few minutes to calm down, to make some sense, that's why.
So basically, while I was doing all that rambling on, you're over there trying to plug stuff in and moving a dryer, like, keep talking, hurry up, give me a couple more minutes.
Exactly, yeah, just down to the fraction of a second there. So, let's roll.
All right, well. You were kind enough to reach out to me and be willing to come on again, and for that I thank you. Guests are not always easy to get. Sometimes you reach out to people to come on as a guest, and they don't even respond. They don't even give you the courtesy of saying, well, it's not my kind of gig, no thanks. Usually you just get no response at all and you move on to the next person. But you were kind enough to actually make a repeat appearance, something that the guests we have had have always been good enough to do, and something that I'm always appreciative of, because who really wants to listen to me drone on for 2 hours once a week? So it definitely helps break things up, and you definitely have a wealth of knowledge to share, and I'm glad that you decided to come back and do that. So first of all, thank you. Secondly,
Sure.
To get right into things, one of the questions you and I had talked about when we were setting this up during the week is basically building this show kind of as a tree and seeing what limbs grow off of it. And I wanted to let's start at the trunk. I was curious because you now have what could probably be called, at least by some people, kind of a metaphysical empire of sorts. You're very well known. You have a lot of things going besides your own show. You have all of these meditations on YouTube. You're obviously wildly popular by looking at the amount of subscribers and all the positive comments, and just the way people flock to what you're doing. So if we can't call you an empire, we can certainly call you a Pied Piper of sorts. So I thought it would be great for people to just figure out, or to hear, people to hear how you did this, how you went from zero to Paul Santisi, in 60 seconds or less. Not that you'll explain
Sure.
it in 60 seconds or less. I mean that you got there, you went from, basically doing whatever it was you were doing to deciding, you know what, I'm going to start doing this stuff, and without any real push, you've drawn all these people to you, and I think that alone is an amazing story. So let's start with that. How did you get to be the Paul Santisi we are now talking to?
Okay, great question. Okay, I'll back up, and then I'll give everyone an overview. I've shared the story at the beginning, a little more detail with some other audio, so I won't recap the whole tale. But basically, I was in Las Vegas. I was at a weekend event. It's called Dream Weekend. And I was surrounded by 3,000 like-minded, positive, loving, empowering people, and just having a good time at the MGM Grand Casino in Vegas. And it was a Saturday afternoon. We broke for lunch after listening to a couple fantastic speakers, and I was so emotionally moved and charged by those speakers, and I was so tired from being up since Thursday. Because, in Vegas, you don't sleep. So I was super tired, and I was super pumped up, energetically, we'll say. And we were just walking by the Starbucks back to our rooms to have some lunch and take a rest before the night. And literally, I looked at Starbucks, I read the sign, the green letters, Starbucks, and bam, I felt this voice saying, "You will create meditations. You'll create meditations." And I looked around, and who's saying this to me? And then it was myself in my head. And after like the 6th or 7th time, "You will create meditations, you will create meditations," I said to myself, okay, fine, I will. Okay. And I looked at my friends and I said, when I get home, I'm going to create meditations. And my friend Joe looked at me and he goes, "Why would you do that?" And we all just started to laugh, because if you knew me previously, for me to hear a voice to create meditations was like all of a sudden I'm going to go from a kitchen cooking food to engineering bridges in Norway over the ocean. Is there even an ocean in Norway? Anyways, I mean, that was the contrast of that statement to my friend Joe. So he's like, "Why would you do that?" And I had no idea. I'm going to do it. And then we continued on the weekend. And then I came home, and that voice was back. "You will create meditations. You will create meditations. You will create meditations." And back then, I didn't even know what meditating was. I thought it was odd. I thought it was weird. I thought you had to be kind of loopy to meditate. I mean, I just had no clue what it was. And I sat down in front of the computer, and this guidance we created this thing together. And so I created the first meditation frequency, and I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know if it was any good. I didn't know what good was. I had no clue. So the most logical thing for me was to send it to the last person I heard on stage. So fortunately, he agreed he would listen to it, and I mailed it to him. He listened to it, and he got back to me, and he said, never stop what you just started to do. And that was it. And ever since then, after that, then I said, okay, I'll try to create these things. So I started thinking about what to do next, and it was a struggle. It was hard. Nothing would flow, and I couldn't create. So then I thought, well, maybe this was just a one-time shot. I'll put it on the shelf, and I'll go back to living. So that's what I did. And then I noticed these feelings would begin to present themselves to me. And when these feelings would present themselves to me on the next topic, we'll say, I would literally sit down, and within 24 to 48 hours, it would flow through me and be done. And then I just started uploading everything to YouTube. So that's how I started. And then one thing I did apply into these meditations, that to answer your question, how I went from 0 to where I am in like 60 seconds, I really harnessed and applied my intention. And I've never spent a penny on trying to get anyone to click on any meditations. I've never spent a penny on advertising, nothing. All the traffic, countless millions and millions and millions and millions of views and hundreds of thousands of comments and testimonials and correspondences, I generated all with my intention. And my intention was that I wanted just one person to feel better about themselves with what I share. So I didn't want anything from anyone except them to feel better about themselves. And, I believe that's the winning recipe, is that my intention is just purely to help others feel better about themselves. Because when you feel better about yourself, your vibration instantly raises and goes higher and higher. And collectively, that's how we're going to create change globally and beyond. That's where it starts. It starts with the person and them feeling better, then their vibration automatically increases. So that's kind of how it all began.
All right. Well, you actually walked right into my next point, which is something else we were talking about. Now, we had mentioned this, and this is a problem that exists. You talk about the person raising their own vibration, but there's a huge problem that exists out there throughout the world, and that is every major religion and most major belief systems, even I hate to use the word the New Age movement, but there hasn't, another phrase has not come along to describe metaphysics. So let's say the New Age movement. Sure. Everybody in every one of those areas, whether they're agnostic, whether they're Gnostic Christian or a Jew or a Muslim or a New Age person, everybody's waiting for somebody else to come and make everything better. You have people waiting for Christ to ride in a golden chariot. You've got other people waiting for the 12th Imam to show up. You've got people waiting for the bowels of hell to open up and the devil to show up, because now we know everything will get better suddenly after he's gone. And then you have even the New Age movement, and someone who was we just recently lost, which is Dolores Cannon, was a big proponent of, just wait, the Earth is going to shift. It's going to go into a 5D type of situation, but the 3D Earth will stay and people will be left behind. And I'm thinking, every one of these things has at its central core is someone else will do this for me if I just wait. If I just don't take any action and I just keep going about my business and I trip over through life blindly and do nothing, eventually somebody will come along and give me, it'll be like Willy Wonka. I'll get the golden ticket and I'll get inside the chocolate bar and I'll get the tour of the factory. But that's not going to happen. I don't believe it's going to happen, because everybody keeps waiting for it and has been waiting for it for literally hundreds of years. And that doesn't happen. So people, I think, need to be their own savior. And
absolutely,
you said it, and you said it so eloquently. That is exactly what has to happen, is that people need to accept this for themselves, and the responsibility of, no one's going to save me but me. No one is going to advance me but me. And what's funny is, if you just look at life, the big saying about spirit and here is as above, so below. It's a lot like there, like it is here. Okay, fine. Well, if that's true, in life, in our regular lives, when did anybody ever get anywhere simply just sitting on their can and doing nothing? Everything takes work. If you want something, you have to go out and get it. You have to put in the requisite amount of work. If you just sit there and do nothing, then you're going to get nothing. So what you're subscribing to, Paul, is fantastic in that it helps people, at least should point them in the right direction through a lot of these meditations of becoming their own savior.
We are our own collective power. There's no reason for anyone to get on their knees to give their power to a higher anything. You are that. Like, people can have any belief and perspective they want. That's phenomenal. However, if you stop giving all the power to this entity or being or whatever you want to put your focus on and give your power to yourself, you're going to be blown away with your ability to create the life that you want and who you want to become. So, yeah, we are the power. We have everything within us now, and a lot of people think, I don't know enough yet. I need to know more. No. The fact that you made a decision that you are aware that you have the power or that you want to create change, that's enough to start. And then once you start, because a lot of people are afraid to start. They think they need to learn, then begin. No, you begin now. And then the right information will begin to present itself as if by magic.
Exactly.
So, we are the power, each person. And then going back to what I talked about is when one person feels better about themselves, their vibration goes up. Then when they live their life and the people that they interact with, they will sense, subconsciously or not consciously, that person's vibration is beaming. And then they begin to feel a little bit better and carry on. So it doesn't have to be this massive, tough problem. It can be as simple as if eating a box of Cheez-Its and looking at birds in the pond makes you feel good. Start there. And a lot of people may say, well, I don't know what to do to start. I don't know what I like and what I don't like, so how am I going to feel better about myself? Okay, go to a buffet, grab your plate, and stand at the first item and look at it. Your gut will tell you if you like it or not, right? That's how you start. Go down the menu items. And each time you look at a certain item, you will get a feeling. A feeling will present itself, and you'll know right there and then if you like that dish or not. That's how you start to slowly become aware of letting your feelings guide you versus your thoughts control you. That's it's so simple too. But a lot of people would be, that's too easy. I want the advanced stuff. And I think I mentioned this before. True masters are masters of the basics. The advanced stuff is mastering the basics. And the basics, number one, is being aware to acknowledge and recognize how you feel in that moment. That's the first step. Steps 2, 3, 4 through infinity you'll never get it unless you master step 1. You got to get your feelings in line, get them in check, and then be able to be aware of how you feel. And then you can make decisions based on that will provide more like feelings. And then your vibration will be on this catapult of expansion.
Well, you're absolutely right in what you just said. To liken it to a couple of other areas now, you and I, we're in different age groups, but we're from the same neck of the woods. So let me use a sports analogy that crosses over that we'll both know. The greatest hockey player of all time, Bobby Orr, and he wore a B on his chest for most of his career. So we had him, folks, and you didn't, so that's too bad. But Bobby Orr had the basics of hockey refined to such an amazing degree that when he performed the basics, it looked like what he was doing was completely otherworldly and had never been seen before. And I'm taking nothing away from Bobby Orr. What I'm saying is whatever he did on the ice was done so well. He had that so refined. It's exactly what Paul said. When you have just the basics refined to that degree, then you are a master at your craft. To use another example, let's use John Bonham from Led Zeppelin, because I think pretty much everybody in this audience knows who Led Zeppelin is, okay? John Bonham said throughout his career he was not a great drummer, which is funny because everybody that came after him spent an entire career trying to ape what he did, myself included. And the man's in a one-horse race, and nobody's going to catch him. But did he do anything that was so out of this world? No, he played a basic kit, but what he did, what he had, and the way he performed was he had all of the basics, or what do you want to call the rudiments of drumming, so stone cold perfect. They weren't half-assed in any way, shape, or form. He had them so well and so refined that when he played, you looked at it and went, oh my God, I've never heard anything like this before. Because when you have somebody who, yes, has all of the basics of everything that perfect, that's exactly what they appear to be, is a master. And I think those two analogies are pretty fair, Paul. I think they cross over. No, I think that helps.
You can apply that to any sport. Even look at baseball when they show up for spring training. They're not hitting the ball and doing wild catches. They're doing push-ups, jumping jacks, ground balls, and stretching. That's what they focus on, the basics.
Yeah.
When you master the basics, like you just said, in the moment, you shine brilliance.
Absolutely.
It's the same. It can be applied in the kitchen, too. I mean, I love food. I think in another life I must have been some crazy cook, chef, or something, because I came out of the womb knowing how to cook. And, I think I've been making Thanksgiving dinner since I've been about 5. And it's one of those things I've always understood that the technique really doesn't mean anything. It's the basics. Even to this day when I prepare something, I connect with the ingredients. I love the vegetables. I love the sauce. And I tell the ingredients, just taste good. It doesn't matter what I do to you. It's irrelevant. And the dishes come out amazing. People are like, oh, I need this recipe. There is no recipe. Well, how long do I cook it for? Till it's done. How do you know it's done? The dish will tell you. What do you mean the dish will tell me? That's the answer. It's the same. Everything is the basics. There is no advanced stuff, because you can't understand advanced if you don't master the basics. You got to add before you can do calculus. So everyone tries to skip over the fundamentals, and that's where the magic is. And, backing up to the success I'm experiencing with all the views and the following that's growing at such a phenomenal exponential rate, I don't spend my time trying to advertise. I don't spend my time trying to get you to click or paying so you like my stuff. I don't care if you like it or not. That's irrelevant, because I know where I'm coming from when I create it. So the result follows instantaneously, because I'm focused on the basics of connecting with the viewer, the listener, and having them have an experience that they find desirable, that they enjoy, not the numbers. It's the opposite. I focus on you, on the listener, nothing else. And as a result, people ask me all the time, well, who you spending, who you advertising with, and how much you spending, and what's this and what's that? I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I don't do any of that. I just set my intention. They're like, yeah, right. Okay. Good luck. Like, what do you want from me? I can't make something up that I don't do. Then I have to remember it. Who has time to do that?
Well, that was another thing that I have noticed, and I wanted to say, of your meditations that I've listened to, and I think one of the things that makes them so popular is that intention and that genuineness from you comes through, because when you speak, when you're doing a meditation, at least I know I feel this way, and judging by the comments that I've seen, I'm sure everybody else feels this way. You have the unique ability, even though you're talking to a million people, when you're doing it, it sounds literally as if you are talking to the person who's listening and them alone. In other words, if I'm listening to it, I have the feeling that you're here in the room and you're talking me through this sitting in another chair. And that's a quality that is not only very hard to, well, you can't duplicate it. You either have, it's one of those things, you either have it or you don't. And in your case, you definitely have it. And that's one of the great things about listening to your meditations, is that you get the feeling as the listener that Paul has shown up at your house and he's doing this for you gratis, all on his own. And I think that's one of the things that makes it so popular, and I think that comes from your intention, because what you're intending is, and you said it a little while ago, focusing on one person at a time if you can only help even one person. And that comes through in your meditations. Absolutely comes through 1,000-fold. You feel like that one person.
Yeah, then there's the second aspect to that. When I harness my intention, I amplify it so much, and I capture that moment before I begin. But then I kind of put a wall up, so I amplify it up as bright as it can beam in that moment. And then there's a wall that goes up that reflects it back to me. Now, on the other side of that wall is where I don't go. And on the other side of the wall would be, I really hope people like it. I really hope I chose the right music. I really hope I said the word right. I really hope they like my tone. I really hope and wish that people like me. I don't give a shit what you think of me, because I know what I want you to feel for you. So that's phase 2, is I beam that intention, but then I clearly understand that I want the most people to benefit as possible, but I can't please the world, and I'm not trying, and I can't want it more than you. That's the second aspect that brings that connectivity into the viewer too. And then the third element is I don't edit these things. When I hit record and go, it's one track. It's one line of audio. So now, say we begin right now, and I talk for, this is what most people do. They talk for a minute. They don't like what they said. They stop. They say it again. They stop. They say it again. They go for 3 or 4 minutes. They stop. They say it 3 more times. They stop, and so on. So this line of intention, so picture the first second of sound, this line is slowly climbing up a rope, say, to the sky. And every time you cut it, it goes back to 0. And every time you cut it, it goes back to 0, so forth. So if the audio is 30 minutes long and there's 20 cuts, that line never got past, say, 5 on the scale, okay? With myself, I don't play that game. I leave it all in. I leave it all natural. I leave in the human aspect, the human element. So when you're done listening to, say, 30 minutes, I'm pulling you along that line of intention. Your vibration is raising and amplifying along with me as I'm creating. So there's those are like the pieces that I put together. And then those complete a success momentum cycle. And I think we talked about that before. I'll recap it again because maybe there'll be a bunch of aha moments in about 30 seconds for the people listening. But basically, success builds confidence. Confidence creates activity. Activity creates results, and results create success. Now, the word success doesn't mean money or wealth. Wealthy means money. Success is a feeling. Success means you feel good with what you do. So someone who is successful generates good feelings when they engage in that activity. So those things I just broke down to you with intention complete a success momentum cycle. Now, what did I just call it? A success momentum cycle. That means that you automatically create success in momentum to flow through and back through you ongoing, infinitely. It self-perpetuates and it expands on its own. So each audio is its own success momentum cycle. So once it's done, I don't need to think about it at all because it was built, it was created with the right intention and the right formula. It will grow and expand on its own. And that's what they all do.
Well, they certainly do that. And, again, this is a great point for anybody that happens to be listening and thinking about this, how does this guy do this? He just said it. It's all intention. And the great thing about that is, and you said it, when people go to make a recording of any kind, especially if it's going to be spoken word, they take it and they do it to death. And they're sitting in a room usually with egg crate styrofoam on the wall, and they don't want to get too close to the microphone, and they can't have a pop, and we don't want any hissing, and you can't clear your throat, and don't pause too long, and here we'll stop and we'll edit and we'll do all these things. When you hear, excuse me folks, when you hear something like that, chances are it took dozens of takes to get that right. And what Paul is saying, let me, not that anybody didn't understand it, but I have to kind of simplify this for myself.
Sure.
To make a music analogy out of it. One of my biggest gripes for the longest time, you got a lot of people, I'm a huge Beatles fan, but I refuse to go see Paul McCartney. I've had a lot of friends ask me why. Well, quite frankly, I don't think he's got it anymore vocally. And secondly, when you go and you watch Paul McCartney, let's take the vocal part out of it, and he does Beatles songs. Well, especially the early Beatles material was always very bright, and it was very alive, for the exact same reason that Paul just mentioned on his tracks, which is back then everything had to be done in one take. There was no such thing as an overdub, and whatever you got. And unless there was a horrendously bad mistake in there, you got a live performance. Well, now, when they go on stage and McCartney does these songs that were bright and full of life, the control that the sound man exercises over the performance is so horrible. It takes everything, and what it does is it creates what I call dead. It creates, do you ever see a flat line when somebody passes away? That's what it does. Well, I'm going to take the EQ from the drums and I'm going to make that flat. And the bass is going to be equally flat. And the guitar is going to be at the same volume as that. And then the keyboard's going to be at the same volume as that. The vocals might be slightly louder, but they'll be at the same, and everything's at the same volume. And you suck the life out of the performance. That's why
Kill the buzz.
Go. Yes.
Yeah.
So what Paul is saying, that's exactly what he's getting at. When you take something and you keep tinkering with it, you keep screwing with it, and you keep monkeying with it, for lack of a better term, no pun intended, and you keep monkeying with something, you drain it of its life. And because art and things like music, spoken word, meditations, anything vibration-oriented, is a living, breathing entity on its own. When you strangle it that way and you keep trying to refine it to get what you feel is perfect, you do the absolute opposite. You not only do you not make it perfect, you destroy it. You actually, what you do is you compress the vibration, the vibratory nature right out of it.
Not only that, is when someone redoes things numerous times, they're not doing it in harmony. They're getting frustrated, annoyed, pissed off. They need to take a break. They leave. They got to go. They'll come back tomorrow. They make a miserable experience out of the creation process. It's no. That's not how it works. Well, it does. I mean, it can, but your results are going to be, you'll be spending all your money on advertising and wonder why nobody listens to you. That's what that equals. Yeah, exactly what you said. It's in a lot of these, there's a lot of great, talented people out there who are making audios, like you said, but when you listen to them, everything technically sounds fantastic, but there's no buzz. You don't get any feeling. 10 minutes into it, you start yawning, this doesn't work. It's because that person, they didn't set their intention, they edited the heck out of it, and that audio was built on frustration, annoyance, and then secondly, with the intention, you don't know where they were coming from. What if they just want to make money? What if they want to dangle the carrot in front of your nose so you continuously, for years, buy more and more of their bogus crap? There's a whole back end to this that people take advantage of with people. Like, how many people out here, even listening to this show, how many have been going to seminars for 10, 15, 20 years? And even though your life is better than it was when you started, how many of you are achieving all your goals and dreams every day? I bet you the number is very small. It's because a lot of these guys, these rah-rah guys that go on stage that write 15, 20 books that have this, that, and the other thing, they do it on purpose. They leave out the missing ingredient, the formula. They don't tell you the real secrets. They dangle that carrot in front of your nose so you keep hopping up to every event and running to the line to get them to sign your book, that's never going to do anything for you, because they're leaving out ingredients, and then you don't know what their intention is. What if their intention could be selfish or negative or just to feed their ego? That's where I'm different, like you said. I tell you where I'm coming from. At the beginning of each audio, I tell you what the intention for that audio is. Who else out there does that? If you do, connect with me. Let's collaborate, because I know you're far and few between.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's the magic.
That, you raise a fantastic point without getting too far afield. This is something that I've been saying for a long time. You've got a lot of people out there, especially right now, and they're all over the radio. And it really doesn't matter left or right. I find them a lot, it seems lately, on the right side of radio, on right-wing radio. And one of the worst ones, and yeah, I'll call them out. I'm not one of these people, I won't mention another host's name, wah, wah, wah. Glenn Beck is one of the worst, absolute worst scam artists in the world. Here is a guy who comes out and keeps telling you the world is ending, buy gold from his sponsor, buy his latest book, buy this guy's book, buy that guy's book, buy this protective service from him, buy that protective service from these people that he knows, buy this from that guy and that from this guy and this from that guy. If you spent half of the money that this carnival baka wants you to spend, you'd be broke in about 6 seconds. And yet he keeps telling you about what an altruistic, religious, happy-dappy, want-to-save the world kind of a guy he is. Yet this is a guy with millions upon millions of dollars that, to my knowledge, doesn't give any away. Keeps asking, whenever there's a fundraiser, he keeps asking other people for money. He continuously sells all these books. And this is all of them. I'm just picking him. Okay, but there is a lot of them, and they keep telling you about how bad everything is, and it's going to crash tomorrow. But buy my book. Well, wait a second. If everything's going to crash to tomorrow, what good is your book going to do me? See, this is why, folks, you always have to read between the lines at these guys, their intention,
or feel between the lines.
Yeah, feel between the lines.
Just because you understand it doesn't mean you apply it. So feel,
right.
feel. And if you can't feel, turn the TV off.
Yep.
Stop drinking for a month.
Yep. If that
lay off the Tylenol. Yeah.
If that inner voice says to you, "This is wrong," don't stamp it down and slam the door on it and say, "Get out of here! I don't want to hear this." Listen to the little voice. There's a great scene in Paul. Did you ever see the movie Defending Your Life with Albert Brooks?
No.
Okay, well, there's a great scene in it. Albert Brooks, just very quickly, is a guy that dies, and he goes to, they call it Judgment Town. It's like it's not purgatory, but it's the in-between, where he has to basically defend his life and show that he's advanced enough to move on. And he's lived a life where he's been like a complete coward. And his lawyer is Rip Torn, and he's very funny in it. And there's one scene they're showing where he's trying to defend Albert Brooks, and it's a scene where Albert Brooks, his marriage just broke up. He was supposed to go on a trip somewhere, and he had this flight, and he was going to be sitting between people, and even though he didn't have any money left in his account, he took the last of his savings, and he bought himself a first-class ticket just so he wouldn't have to sit next to anybody. But Rip Torn's defense was right along these lines, and he said, he could have taken the safe way out, but even though he had only $3,000 left to his name, he listened to that little boy inside him that said, "Be nice to me. I need this. We'll get the money back somehow. It's not a big deal." And the way he explained it was very funny, but it falls right in line with what you're saying. Listen to the little voice. Listen to the little boy or girl that's inside you, because you know something? They actually know a lot more than you do.
Yeah.
We're so caught up in this ridiculous, idiotic matrix world of cell phones and television shows and TVs and The Inquirer and Dancing with the Stars and trying to live the high life and keeping up with the Joneses and hurry, hurry, rush, 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 it's got to be done right now, that you don't listen to the little voice. You have to listen to that little kid that's in you that says, you know what, this is a great idea. Let's do this, even though it seems insane. Or let's not do this because I think we're going to get burned. Paul's right, folks. You have to listen to the little voice.
And plus, everything, even what we're saying, what we're talking about, what anyone else says, anyone else's opinion, theories, logic, everything is subjective. The only way it means something to you is if you put attention to it. Then, if you can be aware enough to feel how you feel when you put attention to it, that's how you begin to let yourself guide you. So there is no right, wrong, this, that, the other thing. Everything is subjective. That leaves it wide open for you to be aware of how you feel and how you want to feel and who you want to become with the formula that you want to apply. So, that adds all into what you just said. There's no one way to do anything. There's a billion little bits of feelings that when you're aware of them will give you the recipe that's perfect for you.
Exactly.
And the way to get there is to start to feel better about yourself. That's number one.
Well, that's the other thing. I saw an interesting post. You talk about this. That's a great point, Paul. There was a post by a woman, and I felt very, very bad about it. It was made it onto Facebook, and the woman admits to being ugly and she's not attractive, and she tried to go out and have a nice night with her friends, and even though she thought she looked nice and she did the best she could with her clothes and her hair and this or that, she kept getting pushed aside by either guys or other women, and it was just it was one of those nights where she kind of everything possible went wrong. And you raise a great point. She wasn't good to herself. She started from the perspective of, I'm ugly, I'm unattractive, I have to do the best
outside,
I can.
Yeah.
Hopefully this is not putting lipstick on a pig. Okay, it's the best I can do. I hope I don't have a bad night. Well, guess what? She went out and had an absolutely horrible night, because even though she threw in the qualifier of, I hope I don't have a bad night, she already sent the intention of, I'm going to have a horrible night.
That's what she was vibrating. And then people, situations, circumstances, and events magically line themselves up to enhance that experience that she didn't want, because that's what she was focusing on. You can't think about what you don't want and expect what you want to come in. It doesn't work that way.
Right, and it goes back to what we've been talking about. Everybody waiting for their own personal savior to show up. You can't not do the work. You can't sit here and say, well, for example, I'll never meet anybody, and then never leave your house. Well, if what you think is that a complete stranger is going to knock at your door and all the lights are going to go off and the sirens are going to blare and the fireworks are going to happen and, oh, look at this, it's my person. It might, but boy, the odds are really, really slim on that one. You might want to rethink going out of the house.
I mean, if you could use your mind and picture that ideal person knocking on a door, but to be specific and say knocking on my door, you're kind of creating that resistance. If someone could use their mind and see their dream or their soulmate knocking on a door that they make eye contact with, that blows their mind. So then that would allow them to leave the house or go into society or go into a store where there's a door, and then, poof, someone is there. Yeah.
You're big on that colloquialism, poof. You use that a lot, I've noticed.
Poof, bam, poof, because that's just how it is. When you think of something with anticipation and enthusiasm, and you generate the feeling that you've already received it, and then you don't care about getting it, then it comes in. So it is poof. It does appear.
I have to tell you, Paul.
You let go of that resistance.
your laughter and your attitude are very infectious. Now, I noticed that the first time I did your astral projection meditation, the first time when you were talking, you go down, down. I'm like, wow, this guy's really into this. Yeah, this guy really.
Something else we could talk about
really
too.
Into it.
Talk about how powerful just intention is, because it's really the crux of everything, no matter what you want to do in life. If you listen to my 3D sleep meditation, that knocks people out. People are like, 5 minutes, I passed out. I haven't slept. I've been an insomniac for 15 years. I've been on 15 pills. 10 minutes listening to you, I'm asleep. Well, if you listen to that audio awake, I'm yelling at you to go to sleep. I'm not saying go down, down. I'm like, go down, down, down. Then I'm like, sleep, sleep, fall asleep. But my intention when I created that was I envisioned people falling asleep. So the tone and the delivery, like I talk about in a bunch of my audios, that's not everything. That's a piece. But your intention, so my intention of seeing everyone sleeping puts you to sleep. Because technically that audio is ass backwards, because I'm yelling at you to go to bed. I'm yelling at you to fall asleep. It's like the biggest oxymoron. And it's one of the most effective audios in the world for sleep.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that, not that particular one, but okay, let me try this with my tongue in my mouth again, folks. Let me rewind. Okay, now we'll try this again. I wanted to ask you about the 3D aspect, because I'm going through your 3D astral projection meditation, and I wanted to ask you a couple of things, which is why the 3D, and how did you create the 3D?
Sure, great questions. I was on YouTube like everyone else, and I kind of caught wind of these 3D audios. And they were just people shaking keys, lighting matches, throwing light bulbs in the garage, dogs barking, running at you. And I was really blown away with the surroundness that was created. So when you would listen to these audios and close your eyes, your mind put you in that experience to match the auditory of that sound. So it felt like I was in the park and the dog was running at me. It felt like that light bulb was crashing 2 feet from my face. And it gave me that amazing feeling of realism. So then I thought, well, these would be amazing if I could somehow create audios with this technology. So I started looking up 3D microphones, and they're really far and few between. And the people that do have them, they're pretty expensive. They're thousands and thousands of dollars. So I just decided I was going to make my own with what I felt was the right elements in there. So I just kind of Googled 3D microphone technology and just did my own diligence, and then I built my own microphone. So my 3D microphone, it's not in a sound booth. It's not a microphone. It's actually a full-blown mannequin that I put the binaural microphones in the ears. I built ear canals. I have brain tissue. I have silicone ears, and I mimicked a human as the best I could. So that's my microphone. So when I'm creating these audios, I am talking to you because you become the mannequin, because your ears that you hear are what the mannequin pick up. So that's what allows that surroundness to come through. And this is usually in an open room. There's no sound foam. It's just a normal room. It picks up everything. It picks up my feet and my shoes. If I hit my belt or my pants, you hear it. It's all good. And then the silicone ears and things, when I'm up close to you, they'll pick up the vibration as if I was whispering in like your ear up close. So that's how I'm able to generate and fabricate those senses with that. And then one thing I discovered with the 3D sound is if I did an audio just linear, left and right audio, stereo sound, I only have an opportunity within each second to put the sound. So in each second I can say a word or a group of words, and then I got to shift it to the other ear. So it's 1 second at a time. With the 3D, the way it captures the audio in full circle, the way I can layer that is it allows me to create as much time as I want within each second. So when you're listening to the affirmation aspect of an audio, consciously you may be hearing 3 or 4 things being said, but in the audio itself there may be 15, 20, 30 affirmations going off within that second that subconsciously your subconscious is embracing. And then what that does is that fills the left and right side of your brain so much that if you've noticed, and everyone listening who listens to these, it's pretty hard to have your own thought when you have your headphones on and I'm in your ears. So it really takes over your mind, and it gives me the opportunity to really focus and deliberately use affirmations with repetition to give you the maximum benefit, because the mind chatter has a really hard time presenting itself because I'm everywhere all at once, like you mentioned at the beginning of the show. So that's that. And then the response to these 3D audios has been mind-blowing out of the gate, because I don't think anyone is even creating anything like these. And, the way I harness and broadcast my intention, I will never be duplicated, but I do encourage anyone who wants to utilize this technology to help other people to do it, because there is no competition, because your intention makes you you. So the other things you do don't really matter. There's enough room at the top for everybody. So I don't look at my work as well as, oh, you're trying to copy me. If I see someone trying, I'll reach out to them and teach them what they need to do, because I want them to excel. I want them to expand themselves, and I want more and more people to be able to pull the trigger to help more people feel better, like the journey I'm on. So it's not about me. It's truly all about you, and you. So that's how I do the 3D.
Now, how did you, just to expand on that a little bit, what made you think about getting a mannequin? I mean, again, a 3D microphone, like you said, is a very intricate piece of technology. What made you go get a mannequin?
It just presented itself to me. How can I connect with the viewer personally? That's not me talking into a microphone. That's me talking to another person. So the next thing I thought of, let me replicate that person so they're in front of me. So when I'm doing these 3D recordings, I may be under your ear, I might be behind your head, I may be over your head, I may be on my back yelling up at you, so your ears pick me up that way. So it just gave me the opportunity to fully connect with the listener versus just me talking into just a microphone. It gives me, for me, it gives me that knowingness that this is you, this is the listener, and this is where I am, and this is what I'm saying, and I know that you're going to hear and feel me exactly how it's intended. That way I'm not wasting all my time post-editing trying to create all these effects and all this junk. I don't do anything. I leave it alone. So when you hear me, that's me, how I was in the moment, where I was. It just makes it nice and natural.
Well, how did you, in other words, you said you built ear canals and brain tissue, and see, I'm a person that likes to know how things work. But did you take the back of the mannequin head off so that you could work inside it? And so I'm trying to fully grasp what you did here. Yeah, got out my grinder. I lopped off the ears. I put on silicone ears. I looked up on Google graphics and animations of ear canals and similarities and materials that were similar to it, and where bone and brain tissue is, and I just did my best to replicate that. Amazing. I'd like, you know what? Did you ever take a picture of that mannequin and put it, show it in one of your videos?
No.
I think you should. I think you should show people some of your.
I put them actually. I have them on my website, Because I can make them. So if somebody orders one, it takes me a few weeks, but I'll physically make the thing myself for you. So on the website, there is some little pictures. I leave it just more or less to the head, but when you get it, there's more to it. So there's a little bonus that you don't know about.
Interesting. I say that because there are a lot of good there's a lot of good videos on YouTube of people like yourself who have talent, and they may not necessarily make their living at that particular talent, but they're good at it. For instance, everybody I'm sure is familiar with the show Lost in Space. Not the crappy movie that came out some years ago, but the actual television show. There have been people that have created, and I mean from scratch, their own Lost in Space robot, and did it with very little talent and very little idea of how to do it. And some of these people have created some really convincing prop quality stuff. So to go back to and not beat it over the head, intention is a big part of that, because you have to wonder, well, how did this guy do this? If he doesn't really have that talent, or how did he pull any of this together? Well, simple.
I had the desire to do it, and then
Bingo.
I felt good, and then the rest presented itself. The how doesn't mean anything. Like everyone thinks the how is, how do I do that? How? The how doesn't mean a thing. It's the why. The why goes back to the feeling. So when you generate the feeling of what you desire, the how presents itself. So the how doesn't mean anything now. The why gives you the answers on the how. So I didn't know how I was going to do it, but then when I knew I wanted to do it and I gave birth to that desire and it felt good and I lined myself up, then how presented itself. So I don't know how I did it. I just did it because I wanted it done. And it's irrelevant how. It's why did I want to do it? And I wanted to do it because I knew I could enhance other people's experience with what I was doing.
Cool. All right, well, we're coming up to the top of the first hour. One of the things, let's take a break, because I want to talk about your Mastermind series, because you had explained that to me, and I thought, wow, this is very cool. I like where this is going, and I thought that well, before we have a couple of minutes, explain what your Mastermind series is, what a Mastermind meditation is basically, and then we'll let everybody know what we're going to do in the next hour. How's that?
Sure. Fantastic. Because I know a lot of people listening, they're tuning in just because of that reason, because I did mention we were going to have a live Mastermind meeting on the call. And this is something I've never done, so I'm really excited to present the material. Basically, I didn't make this information up. This is in the books by Napoleon Hill, and he talks about this, and it goes over 99.9% of people who read the book, and it went over my head for about 15 years until this lovely lady, Sharika, which I'll tell you about after the break, she introduced me to this concept, and we started doing it, not even knowing what we were doing, and the results were instant and miraculous. It was, you just can't make this stuff up. And then, since then, over the last year of her and I applying it, I've delved much more into compressing it and understanding more about it and applying that, and the results have been amazing. So I believe with what we can do after the break is we can and we will do a group collective mastermind call. I'll explain to you what it is, what it's not. I'll give you the outline, the basics. We'll do a very quick call together, a meeting rather, over the phone on the show. And then after we do it, then you can ask me questions and we'll clarify more and more about it. How's that sound?
I think that sounds pretty fair. Can't ask for more than that. All right.
Now,
folks,
let me ask you this before the break real quick.
Sure.
I know
Ask away.
I know dead space in radio is a big no-no. Is somewhere between 7 and 10 seconds okay?
Absolutely. We're not standing on ceremony here, Paul. My only concern when we have dead air is that somebody goes, "Oh, they stopped broadcasting. I'll get off now."
Yeah, because 5 seconds of silence in someone's mind really feels like 5 minutes. So
Yep.
so anyone listening, We will be doing little exercises. We'll do them quick, 7 to 10 seconds of space so we can focus collectively, and then we'll carry on.
All right, that works for me. Okay, folks, our guest is the mastermind himself, Mr. Paul Santisi. We are going to take a break here at the top of the hour, give everybody a chance to catch their breath, get a soft drink or an adult beverage or whatever it is you're doing on a Saturday night at 8 o'clock while you're listening to us. And we'll be back in a few, and we will we'll get into this whole mastermind meeting thing. Sounds like it's going to be very, very interesting. Or to quote the late, great Artie Johnson, very interesting.